Well, hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Maria Pertello-Cermito, and I'm glad you're all here to participate in disaster preparedness. It's wonderful to see this many people on board. If there's a reason that you can't stay the whole presentation, we are recording it so you can see it later, but also I'm going to be doing this class in 2 days. And then also about 7 or 8 more times throughout the season. It's the exact same class over and over again. So if you know of anybody who couldn't make this class, perhaps they can find another class on Eventbrite to register. All right, I'm going to share my screen as we get started. Okay, so disaster preparedness. Are you ready? I know I'm in the process of getting ready. In today's class, we're going to cover several things. We'll start out with some of the names for our 2020 season, a little bit of terminology, and knowing a little bit about wind scale. But we're also going to talk about getting informed, creating a plan, and assembling your kit and supplies, and foods that you ought to consider packing or storing away. We'll talk about food safety and 3 options for sanitizing your surfaces, as well as sheltering in place versus evacuation centers. And there's been some changes due to COVID at our evacuation sites here in the county. We'll talk about some post-disaster precautions, and then later on, after the presentation, we will send out an evaluation that should take no more than maybe a minute, maybe a minute and a half to complete. And we certainly would appreciate if you could go ahead and complete that evaluation. So we are already, as if you didn't know, in hurricane season, and it doesn't end until November 30th. A lot of people figure that November 1st we're kind of out of the woods, but actually we do have storms, and some pretty severe storms even in November. So here's the list of hurricane names. And before storm season even hit, we had already had Arthur and Bertha. We just finished with Cristobal just as June 1st was ushering in. And so far, I don't believe that there's anything out there that we need to be concerned about. But, you know, if we do happen, sadly, to go through all these names, then they start with the Greek alphabet. So what is the difference between a watch and a warning? A watch is sustained winds of 74 miles an hour or higher. It's typically issued 48 hours in advance to give you advanced time to prepare. A warning is sustained winds of 74 miles an hour, and it's typically issued 36 hours in advance. And if there has to be a silver lining to preparing for a hurricane, at least we have hours, days, even weeks to prepare, unlike some natural disasters. So here's a wind scale, and the big thing I want to notice, I mean, whether it's 96 to 110 or 130 to 156 miles an hour, really, if you get into a category 3, you're looking at devastating damage. And if it's a 4 or a 5, you're at catastrophic damage. And it doesn't take but one hurricane for us all to feel the effects of the damage that can happen. So where do you start? Because there is a lot to do. Well, first, let's start by being prepared to be safe. Gathering that information, we'll talk in more detail with each of these, but making a plan, assembling your kit, your food safety, knowing your post-disaster risks, But remember, creating a plan ensures that you and your family will be prepared both physically and mentally, because it is a mental strain to go through any type of disaster. So gathering information. Well, you know, you've already made the first step. You're participating in a webinar that's going to provide a lot of good information, but you still have homework to do. You need to learn about your community response plans. You know, maybe your HOA has a CERT team, Community Emergency Response Team. If it doesn't, it's a good idea to get into place. But do you know your evacuation plans and your evacuation centers? Have you signed up for Alert Sarasota County? And Alert Sarasota County is just a good thing to always be signed up for anyways, because if there is a water main break in your area, it will alert you on your phone to tell you that you need to boil your water or have water precautions in place. But now's a good time before a named storm hits to buy that weather battery wet radio to know your risks in your area. So if you go on the county website, it will tell you your evacuation zone, what zone you're in, A, B, C, D, and it will also tell you your flood area. So you should know your zone, your evacuation area, and your FEMA flood zone. If you didn't already receive this, if you happen to sign out any library books from the library, they pass this out, one to every person, but it is our new Sarasota County Planning Guide. It is wonderful. It is filled with great resources. If the libraries are opening today, but also you'll find them in some of our county offices and around town. Our office is placed in order. We haven't received them yet, but in the next week or two, we should have several cases of them. So let's start by saying complete a family plan. What does that mean? Well, first of all, you'll need to update all your contact information and include your out-of-town contacts. But contact information, even your next-door neighbors or anyone who's in town who could visually inspect your home if you do decide to evacuate. Make sure you have at least one meeting place inside your home because disasters like hurricanes do spawn tornadoes. So having an interior room with no windows is a safe place to meet. But in case of a disaster such as a fire, think about meeting places outside of your neighborhood. If you're out getting groceries and somebody else is running errands and you find as you approach your home that you are not allowed to enter your HOA because of a fire, then having that meeting place outside is a great idea. Plan for those with special needs, and Sarasota County has Sarasota County medical needs applications. You can go online, you can download and snail mail it in, but you can also just complete it online. Once you complete it, you're done. You don't have to do it year after year. But what this will do is they'll alert the county that you have somebody in your home who requires special assistance, whether it's oxygen 24/7 or some type of dialysis and so forth. And a few days prior to the storm, they will come and pick up that resident and take them to a evacuation center just for special needs. And they will also take with them one caregiver for that person. So it's good to notify the county that a person in need might need assistance. and know your closest shelter. But sometimes, shelters will fill up, and you might be directed to another shelter that might be further down or farther away from you. And ahead of time, think about when you want to evacuate, if you even want to evacuate, and where. Perhaps you would like to go to a friend's house, especially if you are in a more vulnerable area or have a vulnerable dwelling, like a mobile home. You will have to evacuate. So knowing where, if you're going to go to a shelter, a friend's home, or are you going to travel up out of the state or take shelter in the interior portion of the state? So assembling your kit and supplies. Now's a great time to check your insurance coverage to make sure that you are insured properly. Sadly, the insurance companies have now locked us out of purchasing flood insurance. We have till the end of May to purchase, and we are closed out from June 1st to November 30th. So our window of opportunity opens up December 1st. The caveat is that if you do want to purchase flood insurance, you need to do it no later than May 1st, because they do require at least 2 weeks to 30 days to get your plan started. So that would need to be done early. But also with your insurance coverage, do you know your wind deductible? It can end up being a pretty high or substantial amount of money that comes out of your pocket. Now's a great time to inventory your home and possessions. So taking your cell phone, putting it on video, opening up cabinets and drawers and closets, getting a good idea of videotaping each room of your house. Don't forget your garage and cars. Don't forget your lanai and lanai furniture. Then go outside and videotape your house, what it looks like on a beautiful sunny day. Gather all important papers and documents, deeds, passports, car license, your insurance documents. And then we're also going to talk about your list of contractors that are licensed and insured. Those will be considered important documents. Marriage deeds, if you are a veteran, your veteran papers. All those types of documents, make sure you have secured in a watertight container. If you do evacuate, take them with you and also put them on a thumb drive. Now, it's great to have your wallet and purse, but remember, cash is golden. If we do lose power, we've lost ATMs. So getting a substantial amount of cash that you feel comfortable with is a great idea. Think about car maintenance. Make sure that spare tire in your trunk is filled with air, because if you do start to travel, you could run into debris and end up with a flat tire. Make sure your car has plenty of oil and gas in it. And gather that list of licensed and insured contractors. So let's talk a minute about avoiding fraud. So just remember that when we see that cone of opportunity, so do our friends up north. They see an opportunity too. So they can go out and purchase that magnetic sign and call themselves, quadruple A contractor. And we have suffered a devastating storm, and here comes our best friend to help us. So to avoid that situation, now is the time to gather licensed and insured contractors. And even that, I would still ask them what their hourly rate is today on a beautiful sunny day, so that you know that price gouging isn't going on. And it has happened in the past, so be aware. And it is illegal. But if you do sustain damage, make sure you obtain a written estimate. Do not pay for work before they begin. Do not pay a final balance until the work is 100% complete and you are 100% satisfied with the work. Do not pull permits yourself. That is just a red flag that you are dealing with a fraudulent contractor. They need to go ahead and pull permits, and absolutely do not pay in cash. If you do suspect fraud, down at the bottom of the screen is the 1-866 number that you can contact to report it. So let's go to another side of it, assembling our kit and supplies. So of course, extra flashlights and lanterns and batteries. Remember, we have to be resilient for at least 3 to 7 days. The county is going to be busy assessing damages of roads and buildings. So we need to be accountable to take care of ourselves for that amount of time. So we'll need a food supply for about 3 to 7 days, and making sure that it's high energy, low salt, low sugar, and non-perishable. A 7-day water supply, 1 gallon per person per day, but that does not include water for cooking and for washing. So you'll need extra water for that. And get rid of that electric can opener and make sure you go out and buy a manual can opener, and do it soon, because those are one of the items that sell out quickly at the grocery store. Prepare to be resilient for at least 3 to 7 days. So what do we mean by shelf-stable foods? They're non-perishable, they don't need cooking or refrigeration unless opened, and they're easily prepared. So think about foods or meals in a can like chili and those types of things. But don't forget to purchase food that appeal to family members. Foods for special dietary needs, baby foods for young children, and baby formulas for infants. And sometimes I've even recommended, for a small serving size, you can buy baby foods and use those jar of squash. It's a great snack item. It's it's low sugar because they don't put sugar in baby foods, and there's no sodium. So that's an opportunity and something to think about. But also consider foods that are rich in protein and nutrient dense. And nutrient dense means little calories packed with a lot of nutrients, and they will help maintain your strength and energy. Think about those single serving sizes, but be wary. Sometimes those canned foods or snack sizes are high in sugar and high in sodium. Instant meals can be high in sodium, so read those labels. Avoid foods that are high in sugar. Yes, we like to go to our comfort foods like our cookies and cakes and pies, or maybe you're a salty person who enjoys your chips and crackers. But remember that you will only become more thirsty, and try to select things to avoid leftovers. So let's talk a little bit about food safety, because nothing is more miserable than going through a disaster and also going through a foodborne illness. And remember, our most vulnerable populations are very young, our older population, and anyone with a compromised immune system. But we all need to prepare to be safe. So let's put out a question. Foodborne illness is not a common occurrence. Is that a myth or a fact? Well, the fact is that in 2018, the Center for Disease Control reported that 1 in 6 Americans do get sick from eating contaminated food. Now, if you ever got a foodborne illness, did you report it to the health department, or did you report it to your doctor, who then would report it to the health department? So this number 1 in 6 could actually be more like 1 in 5, 1 in 4. These are just reported cases. When we think about food safety, remember we're thinking for the very young all the way through seniors. So our first step, and if we haven't heard this enough with COVID, but it still applies here, is washing our hands and washing them frequently. 20 seconds. Happy birthday, ABC song twice. Nice warm water, and make sure we dry our hands on a clean, dry towel or on paper toweling. But say we want to also, instead of being wasteful with sustainability, think about cleaning our water containers, and we want to sanitize those. So if we are going to include containers that might contain something else, we need to make sure that they're washed and sanitized, because you can get a foodborne illness by not sanitizing the containers properly. So washing with soap and water, and then sanitizing with just 1 teaspoon of non-scented household bleach per quart of water. And a quart of water is 4 cups. Thoroughly rinse, and do not use old milk containers as for drinking water. You'll never be able to get out the fat residue inside those containers, and you will end up getting very sick. So food safety with our water. Say you did sign up for Alert Sarasota County, and they've asked you to purify your water. How are you going to do that? You're going to boil it continuously for 3 to 4 minutes and aerate it to improve a flat taste. And aerating means just pouring it from one sanitized container to another, back and forth, 3 or 4 times. And remember, if you do need to use bleach, it's always unscented, and you let it stand for 30 minutes. But here is the proportion, and we're talking very, very small proportions. For 4 cups of water, it's just 2 to 4 drops. If you don't feel like you have you don't have an eyedropper or some type of dropper, for every gallon, it's 1/8 of a teaspoon to 1/4 of a teaspoon. Again, unscented bleach. Scented bleach contains some chemicals that are very harmful for us to consume. Let's stand that 30 minutes. But again, sign up for Alert Sarasota County for an important update. But we also need to think about, for food safety, is sanitizing our surfaces. And we have 3 options. The first option, again, uses bleach, 1 gallon of water, but this time you are adding 1 tablespoon of unscented liquid chlorine bleach. You're always dealing with unscented bleach. Pour that in a container that's well labeled. The solution will maintain its integrity for about 5 days, and after that, you'll need to throw it out. I suggest putting it down and sanitizing your sink, and then making a brand new solution. But again, 1 tablespoon for a gallon. If you decide to sanitize and you don't feel comfortable using bleach on your surfaces, then you can heat either 4 ounces of white distilled vinegar or hydrogen peroxide, and then you pour that warm solution into a container and like a spray bottle, and you can use that. Immediately spray on your kitchen surface, counter, refrigerator, and so forth. Let it stand for about a minute so that you give it time to do its job, and then wipe clean with a paper towel. Another option, option 3. You still can use your white vinegar or hydrogen peroxide, but instead of warming it, you're going to leave it at room temperature. Spray it onto your kitchen surfaces and countertops, but to be effective, you must leave it on for about 10 minutes before you wipe it off. Now here's the deal. If you do decide to use option 2 or 3, which is the hydrogen peroxide or the white vinegar, when you heat that, it's going to produce an unpleasant odor. The odor will not harm you, but some people find that odor to be kind of obnoxious. Also, it's a good idea whether you're using the bleach or even the hydrogen peroxide in the white vinegar to test it in some unseen location to make sure no fading or discoloring will occur. And you never want to mix hydrogen peroxide and vinegar together thinking it's only going to make it stronger. You're creating a dangerous fume from that. So, myth versus fact. My refrigerator is set at 41 degrees, so I know my foods are safe to eat. Well, the fact is that refrigerators should always be set between 35 and 40 degrees. So if you're even 1 degree over, you are putting yourself and your family at risk. Your freezer should always be set at 0. You can keep one of those little inexpensive thermometers in your refrigerator and freezer. And if your refrigerator has a separate snack drawer, I even recommend also putting one in that snack drawer as well. So what do you do in the idea of that you've lost power and you do have food items in your refrigerator? First, you want to keep your refrigerator closed as much as possible. And it seems like once we tell somebody, don't open the refrigerator, that's what we want to do. But your refrigerator will stay cool for only 2 to 4 hours. Your freezer, if it is completely packed, 48 hours. If there is plenty of space, 24 hours. So you'll need to keep that thermometer to really know what the temperature is of both your freezer and refrigerator. So with a thermometer, if your freezer temperature stays 40 or below, your food is safe to be refrozen. If you don't have a thermometer, but you open your freezer and you see there's still ice crystals on your meats and so forth, you can still safely cook and consume those things. But if it goes above 41 degrees, you will need to toss those things out. You cannot rely on appearance or odor. So here's what you'll need to do prior to the storm. And you see that cone getting closer and more acute towards Sarasota. Go ahead and set your refrigerator to a colder setting. So instead of 35 to 40, set it down to 33 or 32. If you can if you have a sub-zero freezer, of course, set it to sub-zero. But take all the meat out of your refrigerator, and poultry and those types of items, even cheeses that can be frozen, put them in your freezer. Get them out of the refrigerator. Take some water jugs and each day at a time, don't overload your freezer with a bunch of water jugs. Open up the water jug, pour a little bit of water out, and start to freeze those. If your freezer is half full, those water jugs will make your freezer full. And also you could take those jugs and put them in your refrigerator to assist a little bit with keeping your refrigerator cold. But remember, first we want to eat all of our perishable foods out of our refrigerator first. We have a small window of opportunity, 2 to 4 hours. Then go to the foods in your freezer. You have 2 to 4 days if the door remains closed. So start grilling, inviting some friends over to use all your foods. And before a hurricane even hits, I recommend eating all the ice cream you can out of your freezer, because that is a very temperature sensitive, very foodborne illness vulnerable item. And then at the end, after you've eaten out of your refrigerator and freezer, then go to your non-perishable foods that you've collected. So myth versus fact. Freezing foods will kill harmful bacteria that can cause food poisoning. Well, although freezing does prevent bacteria from multiplying, the only way to kill bacteria is to cook food to its proper internal temperature. So now's the time to purchase a food thermometer if you don't already have one. So food safety, and believe this or not, this is one of the reasons why people get a foodborne illness, chicken being and ground meat being the two most vulnerable foods that could contain the most pathogens. But when food is thawed, bacteria is still there, and all you've done is warm it up and it's on its way to multiplying. So using that food thermometer to measure the proper internal temperature. So we see a piece of chicken down there set at 151 degrees internally. No, that piece of chicken, even though it's charred and it looks cooked, it is not safe to eat. Chicken would need to be 165 degrees. So having a food chart is a great tool. But even if you don't, if you always go by the 165 for your internal temperature, you will be safe to consume the food. So for the last slide of food safety, remember, if your home has been compromised in any way with rainwater or flood water, that water is contaminated. So assess all food and food preparation areas. You will need to sanitize all your kitchen counters before you start any food prep. And you'll need to also assess your equipment to make sure that it's functioning. And we'll talk in a few slides later about flooding and assessing things like stoves and refrigerators. But decide what to keep and what to throw away. And when in doubt, throw it out, because, like we said, nothing's more miserable than a foodborne illness during a disaster. So let's take a moment to talk about evacuation centers. Remember, they should really be considered a last resort. If you can, shelter in place. If your home meets the guidelines of it not being in an evacuation zone, A or B, it's not in a flood zone, it's not a mobile home or an RV, then maybe, and your home meets the standards safety-wise of a disaster, then maybe staying in your home or traveling to a friend's home who does meet those requirements is a good idea. So the evacuation centers this year is changing a bit. Still, each person has 20 square feet to move around, which isn't very much space actually. You are provided 60 square feet if you are in a medically dependent evacuation center. And that way it allows you enough room and your caregiver enough room. But remember, prior registration is going to be needed to allow that person access into that evacuation center. What to expect? Well, you're going to still see a health screening before entering. Bring your own face coverings and hand sanitizer. Yes, they will have masks. Yes, they will have hand sanitizer, but they're not going to have enough. No more than about 10 people in a classroom, and of course that's going to be dependent upon the size of the classroom. And there will be enhanced and frequent cleaning of surfaces, smaller groups and social distancing space in food lines. So what do you take to a shelter? Well, you will need to take everything in your disaster supply kit, But you're going to also have to take things like a sleeping bag and sleeping products like a mattress or pillow, some blankets. You'll need towels and washcloth, anything for your personal hygiene, extra clothing and shoes, extra hearing aids if you have them, and definitely extra hearing aid batteries and extra batteries for your lanterns and so forth, or flashlights, a folding chair or lawn chair which to sit, any snacks and special dietary foods. Yes, they will provide some food, but it will be rationed out as to how much food you can be given. And remember any quiet games to occupy your time, books or toys if you have small children. And those ever important documents need to come with you. What to take for your pets? Well, first of all, Sarasota County allows dogs and cats at all their evacuation centers. But don't forget proof of their vaccination records, current rabies and license tags, an appropriate pet crate. And remember, your pets will be in this crate for days, so it should be a good size. Any food or treats, pee pads, water, medications, toys. And you are responsible for your pet in the shelter. So if you didn't train a pet to use a pee pad, you will be responsible to taking your pet out. So let's talk a little bit about generators and gas grills. Absolutely, first step, extreme caution, and only operate in outdoors, well-ventilated areas. Garage doors open, they have to be outside. Store gasoline in well-marked non-glass containers away from any type of living area. And never attempt to refill a hot or operating generator. It must be cool. Keep a fire extinguisher and know how to use your fire extinguisher near your generator. Gas or charcoal grills need to be operated outside and not in a house or garage. And again, store that fuel in a well-marked container outside. Remember, for your generator, carbon monoxide is a frequent killer after a storm. So post-storm precautions, first of all, you won't be running errands after a storm, so avoid driving. Don't get yourself in a situation like the picture on this screen. Most or all intersections most likely will be inoperable. So treat those intersections as a four-way stop. Do not go out and start wading around in floodwaters. There could be alligators, water snakes, or just snakes, and animals, any animals, trying to find higher ground. Besides the fact, there also could be debris that you could step on, and supervise children. Stay tuned to your local media. You will be craving knowledge. Having that weather radio will be your lifeline to what's going on. Be patient. Like we said, the county needs time to assess damage, clear roads, so that those first couple of days is on us. Avoid candles. Use only battery-operated lighting. And avoid any down or dangling power lines. And you might not see that down power line in floodwaters. So just avoiding the floodwaters in general is so important. If you've never used a chainsaw, now's not the time to learn. Always use caution and proper safety equipment when using any type of equipment such as a chainsaw. And don't think you can remove a uprooted large-scale trees yourself. Let the professionals handle that, and they will come in and clear for you. Just remember, don't be complacent, and you're not, because here you are, June 15th, attending this class. So are you ready? You've gotten informed, and you know now to go to the Sarasota County website to find great information. You know now to go and get your copy of the Hurricane Guide. You're going to create that plan, assemble a kit, and get all your supplies, and maintain and update your plan and your kit to be prepared. Now, the photo we have on this screen is from a tornado spawned from a hurricane. So even if the wind damage doesn't get you sometimes from a hurricane, and most likely in the event of a hurricane, it's the water and the storm surge that really kill, but tornadoes are killers as well. So here are some of the resources that I've used in the past and for this presentation. And Katie, do we have any questions?
As of right now, no. A few people are interested in the resources from the PowerPoint, so I told them that we can share that. Oh, and we got one in. The first question is, how long can bottled water be safely kept?
Well, it can be safely kept. Sometimes you will find an expiration date, but if you store it in the proper location, it can last at least 6 months. In the proper location would mean not in an air-conditioned environment. Bringing water, leaving it in your car, storing it in your garage is not a good option. You want to store that water in your home. And, at the end of the season, if you haven't had the opportunity to drink the water, your plants could sure use the water as well. So there might be other ways that you can drink some of that water. I didn't mention this, but it's also a good idea to fill up your bathtub prior to a weather event, because you can use that bathtub for washing, and you can also use it for washing your dishes, as well as washing your hands, taking out a bucket of water and washing your hands appropriately. So saving that water, if you do have a pool and our electricity goes down, our toilets are dependent upon a pumping system. So you could actually use the pool water, taking a bucket of water, pouring it down your toilet to help flush your toilet as well. Katie, are there any other questions?
Yes, the next question is, what is the history of hurricanes making landfall in Sarasota? What areas have historically been more affected?
That's a great question, and one that's not so infrequently asked. And Sarasota did receive a pretty damaging hurricane a few decades ago. This was like in the 40s, 50s. You can look it up. I can't tell you the exact date. So we're not immune to it. And remember, when Hurricane Charlie was on its way up, it was supposed to hit our county. And fortunately for us, it went up the Charlotte River and took an immediate right turn, but it was heading in our direction. And remember that even though if we don't receive a direct hit, the outer bands of, especially in hurricane category 3, 4, and 5, those outer bands can create storm surge, can create very damaging winds as well. So even though we don't get a direct hit, we still can sustain some considerable damage from the outer bands.
Thank you for that, Maria. The next question is, Someone is asking if there's going to be a certification training soon. They had signed up through the college, but it was canceled due to COVID. I'm not sure if you know anything about that, but.
Was it a CERT?
Yes,
CER?
exactly. Yep.
I don't know. I'm not aware of the training you're speaking of. I mean, I'm aware of CERT certifications and I'm all for it. I think they're wonderful. If you're not familiar with CERT, it's a response team so that when after the storm is over, a certain group that are involved in the CERT team come around the community, assess the damage, also make sure everybody is safe, and then they report that to the county. It's like an extended arm for the county. I will be happy to provide information in regards to CERT, but I'm not aware of that particular class that you're speaking of.
Okay.
But I guess I would email the organizer and see if you can find out information that way.
That's some good advice. Thank you. The next question is tub water not potable? It wouldn't be good for drinking water, correct?
Correct, right. If you fill up your bathtub, it is not drinking water. Simply, it's not that the water that's coming out of the faucet isn't clean to drink. It is, if there has not been a water alert. But I would imagine your bathtub has not been sanitized, nor has your faucet underneath where the water comes out has been sanitized. So really, it's recommended that that water is used for washing dishes, for washing your hands and those types of things.
Okay. Someone would like to know what should they do about heavy planters if they can't move them?
Boy, you know, I am not the gardener, and I have had plenty of heavy planters. I've gotten a dolly and tried to move them or had my son move them. But an option would be, although if we're looking at a category 3 or higher, to take those planters and if they are rectangular or have a side to them, lay them on their side. If they're round, make sure that they are not near your pool. If there's any way you can get them away from your pool, because you don't want that planter to end up inside your pool. I don't know. I would have to find out more information on how to move that heavier pot, unless you can ask assistance from a good friend or neighbor who might be willing to help you.
Okay. Next question is, are hurricane screens as effective as hurricane glass against flying debris?
So when you, in this question, I'm assuming you're talking about the screens versus the corrugated aluminum or plastics?
I'm not sure. Let's see if we can get Tina to follow up on that.
So if you purchased your screens from a reputable company that guarantees that those screens will stop a flying object, they are good. And some insurance companies do offer a discounted rate for licensed and approved hurricane coverings, window coverings, and door coverings. Not all of them. You have to ask. But most of those screens are, from what I've seen and read, they are absolutely appropriate. The glass that you're speaking of usually handles up to a Cat 3. But again, I know a lot of people They don't want to see those bolts on the side of the window, so they opt for the hurricane glass. But I would contact to know for sure. I would find out the type of glass that is been installed in your home. You can either look online or call the company that installed them. They will give you the most accurate information.
Okay, yeah, and she had clarified screens compared to shutters compared to glass.
Okay.
Okay, great. The next question is going to be, what is important to bring inside from your yard and lanai? Is there a suggested weight minimum?
It all depends on that wind speed and the direction of the storm, if we're going to be on the right side or the left side of the storm. But anything that you can bring into your home, even your lanai furniture. So what I would recommend is taking an old sheet, laying it on top of tile or carpet, and bringing as much of the furniture that you can lift and bring into your home is to bring into your home. If you have a garage and you can store those items inside your garage, absolutely put them there. But I have put all my planters and those types of things in my garage to store. Try to get rid of everything you can or take everything you can off of that lanai, and if you can, away from your pool as much as possible. And I know some of the companies for screens actually have screening that take you out farther from the screen or the patio door. So it provides you an opportunity to have 6 feet or 8 feet, and the screen is secured from the roof down to the flooring, and you can put all of your furniture items behind that screen. But definitely take all the little fun yard things and put them in the garage for storage.
And that looks like it is the last question, unless anybody else wants to put something into the chat. While we wait to see if there's any other questions, I'm going to send a follow-up email to all of you with the different links and things that Maria discussed today. So that will be coming either today or tomorrow to your inboxes. So you can go ahead and reference those websites and resources that she talked about. And it doesn't look like we have any other questions.
Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share. Oh, it's nice to see everybody. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me and I will provide an answer for you. Always feel free after. And like I said, I have this class again over the next several weeks. It's the same presentation over and over. So if there's something you want to see again, please feel free to join.
Maria,
It is a different Zoom link, so you'll have to re-register on Eventbrite to get the new link.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If they want a copy of the presentation, can they email you that for that?
The only issue with that whole presentation, it is too large of a file to send out. But what I can do, I'll send out some good documents on, I'm guessing most people want something on sanitizing and maybe a grocery list for supplies. And I certainly can send those out to you. And if you get that hurricane guide, all that good information's on there as well.
Okay, thank you, Maria.
What else?
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.